The world looks different from here, not only from the University of Victoria, but especially at the Peter Gustafsson School of Business. Group 7 presents Doing Business in North America, the documentary. Establishing a business is not an easy decision or path to follow, as it has to consider multiple challenges, barriers, and decisions related to the place and type before market entry, the culture of the country in which it'll be established, and its government institutions and regulations. As entrepreneur, Mr. Bill Berger said, depending where the business is conducted, whereas in Canada or the US, one must keep in mind how to adapt to the local market and different styles of doing business, thinking beyond looking for funds or closing contracts, but also establishing relationships and adding value to the chosen product or services to be offered to the customer. This documentary tackles 4 main aspects of doing business in North America, related to stereotypes, challenges, regulations, and barriers, and finally the future of business and business development.
Doing business in North America has been under the shadow of some stereotypes and problems from the past decades. Experts say that the US is not the country that it used to be. In this sense, commercial specialist from the US Embassy, Jorge Prado, discusses an important stereotype and highlights a key aspect for doing business in this country.
The companies I work with are very flexible and motivated to improve and to learn about other countries. How the American company think is very important for us in order to present them the best business partner.
Mrs. Shafika Eden is a successful businesswoman working in the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, also project manager, social responsibility practitioner, and master candidate in community development at UVic. She raises an important difference between Canada and the US way of doing business.
Mostly, first is like there is a stereotype to think that Canada is like the US, and I think that's the first step. It's to understand they are 2 different countries, very different countries, and if you're doing business in one of them or in both, you have to understand all the idiosyncrasies and their different organizations. You're dealing with developing countries. There's sometimes the concept that they might think everybody's rich and can afford everything, and that you cannot fail in a new business, which is not correct.
Doing business in Canada is all about building relationships with honesty and trust, respect towards people, and treat others as you want it to be treated. This becomes a challenge for future business in Canada, while the US must address some serious and unnecessary weakness in its business environment.
Mr. Van Dieten owns an automobile wholesaler and retailer company between the US and Canada. With significant business experience, he explains the reality of doing business between these 2 countries.
Biggest challenge we have in our industry is to be able to get financing and getting the banks to help facilitate, because it's a very cash flow intensive industry, big numbers, they require a lot of money, and there's no support from our banking sector whatsoever, and for most businesses in Canada. Very challenging for funding, so most has to come through private. Again, you're dependent on employees, and good employees in this country are getting hard to find. This is why our immigration is quite open, because
to understand the cultural difference to start, and it goes, you can say, to understand your client and understand what is important for them, their values, and what is it that they want. It's very high cost of labor, and if you're thinking of high labor demanding goods, then that will definitely be another challenge.
In Canada, establishing a business can take too long due to barriers and regulations imposed by the government. This section identifies these from the business person themselves.
As business grow, it's crucial to improve the reward of entrepreneurship through tax system and provide access to resources such as better information, entrepreneurship education, and entrepreneurship centers.
Again, the biggest barriers that we have in all industries in Canada, I think, are still financially. The challenges of getting funding to be able to make your business happen. Without funding, it's so difficult to create business and to expand your business. We're very heavily regulated by the government, which is, if it's hard to get through those, there are some people can't even start their business because our municipal, provincial, and federal regulations.
But there's some bureaucracy here as well. For instance, to make a public company in the stock market, if you go to a law firm, they will tell you that's going to cost I don't know. Let's say they tell you it's going to cost $100,000 and it's going to take 3 months, and most of the time it's going to take a year. And it's going to cost a lot more than $100,000. In Canada, there are certain challenges that are different from other countries because we are organized by province, and they have different standards, regulations. So that's a problem. It's like if you want to do business in Canada, it will be different. There's a huge difference if you want to do business in BC. Or if you want to do business in Ontario, as a professional as well, it's not very easy to get your qualifications recognized by different provincial professional organizations, and the regulations are certainly a huge barrier because they are different in the province, and you have to understand what they are. Even employment laws can be different. In the different province, standards of vacation time or seniority, what is considered full or part-time workers, they all vary by province.
After knowing entrepreneurs and business persons' perspective on how our business is done in the US and Canada, it's time to go beyond and assess the future. Today, the United States is at an analogous juncture with vertically integrated enterprises. However, for the future development of the country, starting a business is a key entrepreneurial action, and decisions in the early years of a firm life can set it on a long life path. While in Canada, the challenge is to build anew the technological operational capabilities to produce high-value goods and services.
So from every point of view, it's an interesting market. It's a market that is really interesting to develop, to get in, to sail, and I think you have a lot of possibilities on doing business in the US.
And it's probably one of the best places to be in the world, both from a commodity-driven, land-driven, political, educational. I think on all levels. I mean, it's the most negative thing I think about Canada from a business point of view is regulation by government. But I think this is probably the most opportune place to be in.
Yeah, so you set up an old folks home or a care facility or assisted living facility. They're going to be booked up the second that you have it built as well, and have a good networking sector around you to be able to ask questions. Finding someone who is in the business that you're looking to get into and ask them, what are the ins and outs.
The whole market and economical situation is still a little shaky. It's a little unstable still. More important than having more business, it's having business with very good quality and with the long-term sustainability. But what we are trying to do now is diversify and help the small business as well, and in other industry business, help the ones that have the dream of starting a new business and give them support for them to be able to create a sustainable business as well.
Canada and the US can look similar at the very first glance, but as seen in this documentary, they are more different than thought, especially when trying to do business in one or the other. As this figure appeared at the beginning of this documentary, it allows now to connect the basic aspect of doing business in North America and in any country in general. It's all about knowing the market, meeting government regulations, and avoiding them to become a barrier. Moreover, it's about focus and pay attention to the unique cultural characteristic of each country. It is important to keep in mind that doing business is more than gaining money. It has to consider the global environment and the people involved. as these are key to be successful in any part of the world. Thank you, and see you next time.